Hi, Denver Startup Week. I'm Ben Data, CEO of Food Maven and co-chair of Denver Startup Week, the largest free entrepreneurial event in the world. And it's only possible thanks to the support of our sponsors. We have nearly 40 sponsor companies who contribute to make DSW possible. Let's show our love for these companies today and all week long. Thanks to our title sponsors, Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Zero. Our track sponsors who have made all the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 in the Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Health, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline event sponsors are bringing you inspiration from around the country. Thank you to Wix, Kenzen, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. Finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors listed on the screen. Thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now let's get to it.
Quizlet is a global learning platform that provides engaging study tools to help people practice and master whatever they're learning. Every month, over 50 million people use Quizlet to study any subject imaginable, for school, work, or as part of their personal interests.
Quizlet is super efficient, and I often, walk to class with it on my phone or even just before I go to sleep.
Combining cognitive science and machine learning, Quizlet guides students through adaptive study activities to confidently reach their learning goals. Quizlet has over 200 employees across 3 offices in San Francisco, Denver, and London.
Being at the Denver Quizlet office for the last year has been pretty incredible. Seeing the office grow while maintaining its, core connections to our values. It's been an incredible experience to be a part of, seeing how humble, candid, and open everyone has been, and being part of a mission-driven company in a time of uncertainty has been incredibly rewarding. So I look forward to, what the future brings, because the last year has been a wonderful experience. Thank you, Quizlet.
Hey everyone, my name's Adam Bauman and I'm part of the Quizlet team here in Denver. I'm proud to work for a company that's goal is to help every single person on this earth become a better lifelong learner. One of my favorite things about working at Quizlet is how much we follow our company values. There's always learning opportunities. We encourage everybody to teach themselves something new, as well as help each other learn. Whether it's from art classes or lunch and learn talks on latest technologies, there's always something new to find and help yourself grow. And I really feel like that's one of the best things that any company can offer is growth and opportunity.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Denver Startup Week, Day 4. I'm Connor Swanson, the Developer Track Chair and member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for our first ever virtual Denver Startup Week. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's that we are more powerful when we come together as a community to share ideas and help make each other better. And here we are virtually showing the world what Denver is made of. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a place where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, regardless of gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, sexual orientation, and the combination of those identities. There is something for everyone at DSW. Thank you for joining us. With that said, I'm very excited for this upcoming session. I'd like to turn it over to Tommy and the rest of the panel here from Zoom to kick things off. Thanks so much.
I'm muted. Thanks, Connor, and thanks Denver Startup Week and Quizlet for allowing us to be here today. We're really excited, and thanks for everyone who has joined us. So our presentation is Scaling Zoom During COVID, and you're going to hear from Michael Purnell, Shrijana Ghimire, myself, Tommy Gaessler, Abe Queen, and Tim Slagle. So here's the agenda so you know what to expect. We're going to do intros, a panel presentation, and then Q&A so you can ask us any questions you have. So Michael, do you want to start the intros?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Purnell. I'm developer advocate at Zoom, and I help manage and support our APIs and SDKs.
Go ahead, Shrijana.
Hi everyone, I'm Shrijana. I'm a developer educator at Zoom and I help manage our docs and everything developer education related.
Thanks, Shrijana. And I'm Tommy Gaessler. I'm a developer advocate and I primarily focus on developer support. Abe, go ahead.
My name is Abe Queen. I'm an app marketplace specialist and I work directly with developers to get their apps onto our marketplace.
Tim.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim Slagle and I'm the developer advocacy manager here at Zoom and I manage all things developer and marketplace.
Thanks everyone. So here is what we're going to talk about today, the 5 parts to a developer platform. We have the products, the docs, developer support, the app marketplace, and then the team, which glues everything together. So Michael's going to start us off and talk about API and SDK products.
Sure. Like I said, hello everyone, my name is Michael Purnell. I'm here to talk about Zoom's APIs and SDKs. So our developer platform offers an abundant amount of APIs and SDKs that allow developers to create their own unique Zoom experience. Our APIs and webhooks allow customers to harness and drive their own data, thus enabling businesses to build automated communication hubs. A good example would be automating communication within internal IT teams. Instead of manually reporting issues for meetings and users, teams can now automate when issues occur, thus improving operational efficiency and helping analyze their quality of service faster. On the other hand, our SDKs help build customizable web and mobile experiences for your businesses by building amazing products on top of Zoom. A great example of this would be in telehealth. We enable hospitals to create their own apps for doctors to instantly do virtual checkup sessions with their patients. Next slide, please. All right. So since COVID happened, we've seen a huge spike in usage within our product and developer platform. In particular, our API metrics have skyrocketed. From 2017 to 2018, we've seen a 197% increase in usage. From 2018 to 2019, we've seen a 50% increase in usage year over year. And so far in 2020, with just 3 months left, we've seen an amazing 900% increase in usage year over year. Our most popular APIs this year are the meeting and webinar registrants endpoints. And one of the main reasons why this is so popular is because of educational and event-based organizations are using these endpoints to make sure students can sign into the right classrooms, or attendees such as yourselves are attending the right sessions during amazing conferences like these. Next slide. All right, so how do we go about scaling our platform to make sure our APIs and SDKs are available at all times, right? One, we revamped our API rate limits to increase the usage and allow more flexibility for our developers. 2, we offered new webhook solutions for enterprises to push data to them instead of pulling data via our APIs. This allowed the customers to instantly analyze their data live as it's happening. And then lastly, we introduced new monitoring systems to make sure we can detect and handle spikes in usage. For instance, within the educational realm, school usually start around 8 a.m., right? So we'll see a spike in meeting and participant-based webhooks around that time. From there, our system can handle the load and scale to make sure our APIs and SDKs are always available for you.
Thanks, Michael. And that's a great point of scaling your platform during peak usage. Now, Shrijana is going to talk about documentation.
Thanks, Tommy. Hi everyone, I'm Shrijana, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm a developer educator at Zoom. In this role, I get to do some of my favorite things in the world, like learning, coding, and teaching people what I learned by crafting good documentation. Good documentation has played a key role in my own learning process during my undergrad, at work, and I'm sure that is the case for many developers, learners, and entrepreneurs, and everyone in the tech world and beyond. At Zoom, and especially in the DevRel team, we believe in empowering people with knowledge. And one of the core ways we do that is by providing reliable developer docs. We value transparency, meaning we want our customers to know everything they need to know about the kind of products and services we offer, such as our APIs, our webhooks, our SDKs, as well as our marketplace. At the same time, we also want to keep people informed about what is upcoming in our services and if anything in our release will impact our customer base. And we do that through our release notes and upcoming changes notes. We also believe in delivering interactive experiences within our docs, and we don't want you to have a boring experience just by reading things. We also want you to try out our products while in the docs. I will talk more about that on the next slide. So I already talked about some of the core principles that we believe in, like transparency, reliability, and we already had that in place even before COVID. But during COVID, I started realizing that it was not enough. We needed to do more to understand what we were doing right and where were the areas where we could improve. So one of the ways that we decided to learn this was by rolling out a developer doc survey. Tommy, if you could go to the next slide. From our survey, we got a lot of good feedbacks. We also gathered a lot of suggestions, and we found out about our developers' pain points. One thing that we found was that some of our error messages were not clear enough, and developers had to spend extra time to figure out what was going wrong when their request failed. And if you're a developer, I'm sure you can relate to this frustration of not being able to know exactly what went wrong and spending extra time just not being able to get things done. So to prevent this nightmare, I worked with our engineering team to review all of our existing error messages and also established a mindset of generating errors that became self-serving, meaning that developers could understand what went wrong by looking at their error messages and also understand what they could do to fix that issue and move past that point. That was one area that we improved on, and another major engagement point between us and developers is the app publishing experience. My incredible colleague Abe will talk more about that later on, but we started looking into ways where we could improve, and an incredible teammate of mine, Pooja, came up with this idea of self-assessment form that developers could fill out to understand whether or not they were providing us with all the information that we needed. For example, there are many times when developers might just forget to sign the developer agreement, and we will reach out to them saying that they need to resubmit because we cannot review before they sign the agreement. So just by reading the docs and filling out that form, they will get to know what they need to include in their submission so that we reduce the friction between the submission process and our engagement. And lastly, but not the least, we started teach someone how to fish approach with quality sample code, meaning that we included tutorials. We recently released tutorials on building an app for our iOS and Android SDK platforms so that anyone who doesn't yet have an Android project or an iOS project can start by creating a new project and learn how to implement features that we provide through our SDK and get started in a matter of a few minutes to a few hours, depending on the developer's experience. That way they know how to get started, and the rest is up to their imagination to build on top, depending on the features they want to include in their app. So these are some of the things that we have done, and empowering our developers through our docs has been very satisfying. But one thing the past few months have taught me is to always strive for better and look for areas of improvements, not just in our docs, products, and services, so that we take a holistic approach. With that being said, I will like to thank everyone for listening to us, and Tommy will talk more about our developer support.
Thanks, Shrijana. That's a great point about having clear error messages because it helps the developer debug the issue themselves. But when the developer can't debug the issues themselves, whether there's a bug or they have a question, they need a place to ask. So we made 3 support channels. We have a public developer forum where developers can ask and answer questions and get support from Zoom developer advocates. And then we have an email so they can reach out to us directly and share sensitive information, maybe like meeting IDs, API keys, so we can help debug the issue. And then internally, we have a Zoom chat channel where Zoom employees outside of our team can ask us questions. Maybe their customers had an issue or they have an issue, and then we can help them that way. Then our support mindset is to understand the developer's use case. Many times I've helped a developer debug an issue. I want to understand their use case because then I can think outside the box and then come up with a solution. And then delight them. Get them the correct answer in a quick amount of time so they can be unblocked and continue building with Zoom. So during the hyper growth period, we learned a lot and had to make a lot of improvements to keep up with demand. For example, our developer forum increased from 100,000 page views to 1 million page views in just 1 month. And we had an increase of 411% of posts. So that's a lot of volume coming in. And we wanted to be able to continue supporting developers in a good amount of time. So this is how we scale. And here's some tips for scaling your developer support team as well. The first one is automate, automate, automate. Most answers most questions that developers ask, the answers are already in the docs or already answered somewhere on the dev forum. So we created an AI developer bot that can answer questions based on already asked questions, and then we're going to improve it to be able to search our docs and then provide the answers there. And that being said, the docs should be the source of truth. That's where developers can go and investigate their issues and look right for the error codes and search to see if they can get the answer there. And then it's easy to automate because all you need to do is take in the developer's questions and then compare it with an existing source of truth like the docs. And then if you realize and see common questions or use cases, you should write docs for it and make it crystal clear. That way, when other developers ask the same questions, you already have them answered. You can just point them towards the docs. And then eliminate unnecessary back and forth. So we implemented a template when you go to create a post on our dev forum and an auto reply when you email our support channel, asking for all the details we need to debug your issue. That way, on the first post, we have everything we need. And then there's not all this back and forth of asking for additional details. And then funnel questions into areas of expertise. So to better scale your team, everyone has different skill sets. For example, I'm familiar with REST APIs and Web SDK, but I'm not familiar with the iOS SDK. So we want developers asking iOS questions to be able to be answered by someone who knows about the iOS SDK. And then quickly fix bugs and implement feedback to product. Your developers and customers will find bugs and they'll have feature requests. So it's best to get them into the product and engineering hands as fast as possible to evaluate them and fix them, and then continue delighting the developer so they can continue building their cool use case. All right, and with that, I'm gonna take it over to Abe.
Perfect, thank you, Tommy. So talking about developers building their cool use case, I'm gonna talk about our app marketplace. So why is an app marketplace important in a developer relations platform? On a high level, it creates a better experience for our end user in bringing Zoom closer to the services that they use every day. It enables developers to build anything they can imagine using our technologies. And for us at Zoom, it makes our revenue more sticky and can help sell prospective customers if we already integrate with the tools that they use. On a really basic level, on an interaction with this site, Marketplace is important for each player in the app lifecycle. For developers, they have a finished product where they can see their app and its usage. For customers, to have a single source for all the Zoom approved and reviewed applications. And for Zoom, so we can see how our technology is impacting users in every industry and use case. We are constantly improving our process now that developers are up and running. But how do we ensure that they're still working of the highest quality and secure? We do that with an improved security review. We have a dedicated marketplace security team that reviews every single app to make sure that it's up to speed and working well. We also do a legacy review of apps that have been on our marketplace for a year, 2 years. We have to make sure that they're still using our technology in the best way and making sure that they're in the right hands. And lastly, process improvement for new developers coming to the platform to make sure that this is an easy process to get onto the marketplace. And it's not a perfect solution as it stands, and it never will be, but we're always improving to try to make that a happy, and as Tommy brought up earlier, to delight the developer. I personally have the unique opportunity to interact with all sorts of developers, garage developers with small teams of 1 to 5 people, to industry leaders and the world's largest brands. We get to see what new features developers are interested in, what works, and all the inventive ways creative minds are bringing our technology to new customers. Tommy, can you do the next slide? So during COVID, it was initially only me reviewing apps in September through June, which did not scale as daily requests went from about 5 to 6 a day to around 30 to 40 a day. Thankfully, I was backed by a flexible and knowledgeable team, which responded by giving me their extra time until we could hire somebody else to help. Now that we have dedicated individuals to ensure developers aren't waiting to get published, our challenge is to look at the things we took for granted before COVID and restructure them to scale. For example, of all the different industries and individuals that we get to interact with, in the beginning of COVID, we escalated and focused on app marketplace solutions for educators in Italy, and then shifted focus to healthcare solutions in China, South America, and throughout the world. Next came working with fitness studios, law firms, and religious organizations to help bring them their clients in a new normal. Each of these industries were previously untouched by the Zoom marketplace, but thanks to extreme growth and diligent developers supported by our team, we were able to expand our technology into new spaces and industries. And that graph right there shows you just an approximation of apps published each month, not even close to the number of apps submitted, because we have a rigorous review cycle that we go through each developer to make sure that their app lives up to our standards on the marketplace. Next slide. How are we scaling? And what do we do to keep scaling to meet increased demand? What did we learn? I found that while the time that we spend on the queue is important, process is king. Even after getting another specialist to dedicate their time to the app submitted, we found that we were quickly at capacity again. Now, as a team, we are thinking critically about the blockers developers may have when working on the marketplace, and being proactive about listening to developer feedback. This then guides the decisions we make when improving developer experiences. With a green team, or with a team that doesn't have a lot of experience outside of the company that we're working at, especially myself, being new at Zoom, only been here a year, process improvement is not about immediately finding a fix. It is about critically assessing the cause of problems, collaborating as a team, and working towards lasting solutions. At first, when I first started, and with the COVID increase, when people are coming to our platform by the droves, that was really, really hard as the only reviewer, because I had a mental image of developers standing outside of the door of my apartment, lining the block, waiting for a review. Initially, this helped me motivate me and work really hard to provide the best support I could to each individual outside my door. However, as a word of advice, this mindset must be released, because quickly I found myself overworked and feeling guilty when I stepped away. After this, the mental image that empowered me to work hard while respecting my own privacy and life was to instead see my team as a net that works as one cohesive unit to help the developers and customers who need us. When one of our team members is out, there will be a hole in the net. But that's sort of the purpose of the net, to rely on the knots and the strong connections to come together to support both the people who need our help and also ensure the integrity and the strength of the team itself. In times of transition, nothing comes easy, but we were provided an opportunity to change what we see into something that works better for everyone. It takes feedback, patience, and a desire to drive others towards success, and you can't do it without a team. And on that note, I'll pass it off to Tim.
Looks like you're muted, Tim.
Thank you. The pitfalls of a digital conference, of course, is that mute button. So I really just want to talk about what we did at Zoom, and specifically in the developer advocacy team, and what we did to grow and how we grew as fast as we did to keep up with demand. As you've seen on some of these other slides, we had astronomical growth, not only from a platform perspective, from people using and ingesting our platform, but also just from a frontline support, right? We had Abe, who was getting large amounts of increase. Tommy, these are the people on the calls, but there's a bunch of people who aren't here on the call that were also getting slammed with request after request after request. And there was a period of time where it seemed like maybe we wouldn't make it out of that dark hole of COVID. But we really came together. And really what it boils down to is there's no such thing as a self-made person or a self-made team. And I really grabbed onto that as I was trying to scale the team. I was trying to really focusing on how can we promote teamwork and how can we make sure that the teamwork continues to exist in an environment that is different than the one we used to operate in, right? We went from being completely in the office every day to being remote overnight, and that was a big change. And promoting that teamwork was very important, and promoting not focusing one person to be that torch holder or torch bearer, if you will. Diverse perspectives are really important. As we were growing, we took feedback from the team and really tried to make sure that the team's input and concerns were heard. And that's really where we ended up with the most innovation as we started changing processes. We started tearing down those walls, those old ideals and processes. We really relied on the feedback from the team. Teamwork is important because it promotes individual growth. And this is probably, I can probably speak for everyone on this call and everybody on my team. This is probably the most significant portion of individual growth that everybody on this team has ever had, I would assume. And really it boils down to is we were thrown into a fire and we grew together as a team. And you know, it's a kind of a cheesy phrase, but a rising tide raises all ships, and that's what happened on this team. Is we really banded together and promoted a lot of unity and teamwork in order to kind of grow ourselves and grow in the skills that we didn't have before, but we needed right then and right now. And at the end of the day, without a team, nothing happens. So promoting that not only the individuality of everybody on the team, but also how everybody comes together and makes it work, right? Again, another cheesy sentence, teamwork makes the dream work, right? And at the end of the day, you know, these cheesy sentences stick around because they're valuable and they're true. And so we really stuck to kind of those core motives of really building the team, and it really helped us out. Go ahead, Tommy. So how did we, you know, during COVID, how did we cope? How did we make it happen? And I really want to stress that it all largely started before COVID, right? If you have a team that is struggling before COVID, they're going to struggle even more during a crisis like this. And so it really starts to always as a leader and as team members, always be trying to always be prepared for that worst thing that's going to happen. We obviously didn't know what COVID was going to do, but at the end of the day, the way that you can be prepared for the worst is to hire the right people. And that's really what we believe here at Zoom, is that you can search and search and search, and you can find a lot of really great candidates, but if they're not the right people, then they're not the right people for Zoom, right? And that can mean a lot of things. That can mean a culture fit. It can mean a skill set fit. It can mean a gut feeling that just says, I'm not sure this person's going to work out here, right? Hiring the right people that you believe can react and manage any situation is really important. So starting before a crisis like this is increasingly important, and for people who have struggled to scale during this time, I think that's probably the largest lesson learned during this time. Act fast. You know, when Zoom had decided that we were going to work remotely permanently or until COVID was over, we had seen the increase in traffic. We didn't waste any time. We put a hiring plan together. We knew that the traffic was going to stick around, and we put a hiring plan together very quickly. During that time, we stayed calm, right? We grew the right way. We talked about hiring the right people. Even during a crisis, that shouldn't change, right? We need to hire. You need to continue to hire the right people as you're growing, even in a crisis. It may feel like you just need to get people in the door to just, be worker bees. But if you hire that way during a crisis, you're going to end up with a team post-crisis that is not the team that you want. And that's a very dangerous and sticky situation if you're hiring quickly and not sticking to your ideals and values. Then it's really going to be a detriment to your team. So staying calm, making sure you're making the right decisions, hiring the right people, continuing to hold your ideals and values is really important during a time like this. And then support. Couldn't say that word enough. And really what it means is knowing that none of it would happen without the team, and supporting them to have a healthy engagement with the people they work with the company they work for, and all of the interactions that they have, making sure that they have everything they need to be successful. Not needing for anything, and if they have blockers or concerns or suggestions, that they get evaluated and resolved as quickly as possible. And how are we, at the end of the day, how are we doing that as fast as we are? We went from, on this team, and this is indicative of most of Zoom, we went from, on this team, we went from about 6 people before COVID to actually 7, sorry, before COVID, to 17 as of yesterday. And so that's a really fast growth, really fast growth for a team to go over the course of 5 months or so, to go from 7 to 17 to add 10 people. And really it boils down to, we already had the pipeline. We were always building that pipeline. We never stopped. And even though we weren't hiring, we were still building up recruiting pipelines, as well as resume pipelines, right? So we had job postings on our career site. Even though we weren't hiring at the time, we were still building that pipeline, just in case we needed to pick from something, so that we could act fast if we needed to. Automate where possible. So you can, as you look at a problem like a crisis situation like COVID or any other potential crisis situation, you can rely on just hiring people to add work hours to your team, and just pound out the problem using manual labor. But at the end of the day, that doesn't scale. And so anywhere that you can automate a process, or you can automate a procedure, or anything like that, is really important for scaling. Automate. Simplify. What we started doing is, we were talking, Abe and Tommy and Shrijana were talking about, how we were simplifying a lot of our processes. And that's not only from an external perspective, right? So their focus is largely external, but also simplify the processes internally. How do you get things escalated? How do you get issues, concerns, new feature requests, all the new interactions that you're having with the public? How do you get those in front of the right people, so that they can be addressed? And ideally, that should be a simple process. And if it's not, then it's not going to scale well. And so simplify those processes. If it's not easy, people won't do it. Diligently promote work-life balance. This is probably the most important one. And these last 2 points kind of go together, really. But in a time like this, where people are always in front of their computers, our largest struggle when we first hit this crisis was people were always in front of their computers. Every single person on this call was working a 12 to 16-hour day, and at the end of the day, that doesn't scale. It doesn't work. It promotes just bad feelings. And so, always be promoting your team and the people who work with you to care about themselves, be caring to those people around them, and is everyone happy and healthy? That's kind of my metric. I ask everyone on my team regularly, are you happy and are you healthy? And if you aren't one of those things, then there's a problem, right? And those are kind of two really easy metrics that you can ask. And if one of those things is wrong, then you solve it immediately and quickly. And as I've grown this team, that has been probably the number one successor for success metric for me, is that I can ask pretty much anyone on my team if they're happy and healthy, and they are. But if they aren't, then we solve it really quickly and we get them back to that happy, healthy baseline. And yeah, that's about it for me. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tommy.
Thanks, Tim. I think teamwork and work-life balance is super important as well. So now we wanted to open up to the audience for a Q&A. So if you have a question, hit the Q&A button on the bottom and type away, and we'll be happy to help answer.
Yeah, anything at all. We're totally here to help you understand how we're growing this rapidly growing platform. It's pretty intense how fast it's been growing. So
yeah, and I can start off with the question from Michael Purnell, if you want.
Great.
My question is, what vertical did you think was the most interesting coming onto Zoom and building with the APIs and SDKs?
I would say before COVID, it was definitely healthcare. But during COVID, I would say education, because it's just all these schools, they're going virtual, right? So we had to make sure that all the students were on, because a lot of schools didn't want to just use the Zoom client. They wanted to use the SDKs, use a web version of it. They want to be able to use the APIs to be able to get the metrics. So I would say education definitely the most used one that we had since COVID happened.
Okay.
I think just adding on to that, Michael, I think one of the more interesting things that we've seen is that we've seen a really interesting increase in non-enterprise apps, right? We used to have, and I'm kind of lumping in healthcare and healthcare into the enterprise app, because most healthcare companies are ran like a company, even if it's a hospital, right? But we've seen this exceedingly this really interesting increase in non-enterprise apps being submitted to our marketplace, and trying to handle that and try and figure out how we approach that problem, because our entire product 6 months ago was enterprise focused, and it's really interesting to try and solve that problem of how we integrate those new and interesting use cases into Zoom. And so it's been a really interesting problem to try and solve.
Yeah, right. And just piggybacking off of it, yeah, like you said, we were strictly focused on enterprise about 6 months ago. Now we're consumer based, and that's why I brought up educational, because it's strictly consumer, and you have students, you have teachers who are not very technical savvy. So how do we make sure not only our product but our developer platform is easy enough for them to adopt and use?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, if you have a question, just hit the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom screen and you can submit one. But yeah, one of the first non-enterprise ones I think we had was a game, actually, our first game, and it was for Dungeons and Dragons, where you could use Zoom chat and roll dice while you're in the Zoom meeting and then play the game remotely. Abe, you probably know more about Dungeons and Dragons than I do, but that was a cool integration to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of my pleasures that I talked about in my little presentation, was talking about how many developers and the variety and the diversity of developers that we see submit, not only in the team themselves, but in what they're submitting, whether it's an enterprise, a consumer only, working with law firms, to just something really fun to play around with your friends. D&D Dice was pretty much one of the first ones, but it's really fun. You can just type exactly what dice you need and it'll auto roll it in the Zoom chat. We're seeing even better, not even better, but even newer and more exciting consumer-only apps coming, such as Telescape Live, which is a virtual escape room, which is super fun if you want to get some friends together and do that over Zoom. It's sort of like a point-and-click adventure. So always new and fun things coming.
That's great. And then I have another question for you, Abe. It's a kind of a common question, is why the app marketplace? Why do we have an app marketplace? Because a lot of other APIs and platform as a service, you can use the APIs, integrate, and then put your integration out there. Why do we want developers to be on the app marketplace?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So the app marketplace provides a really, really good frame for users, because if it's just a random cloud-to-cloud interface that uses with the APIs, somebody could be accessing your data that you really don't know what they're using it for, or where it comes from, or where it's going, or anything like that. But with the Zoom app marketplace, it provides a really great single source for users and Zoom customers to come to a spot and say, these are the apps that Zoom themselves have really worked with, done a security review, a functional review. They trust them, and I can trust them with my data. And I think that's what's really, really important for the users. And I touched on that a little bit as well. For the developers, it's really awesome to have a spot. You can work for months or weeks to get something that you're really, really proud of. And then if it just sort of exists in the cloud space, then that can be a little bit disappointing. But it's really cool to be listed on the Zoom app marketplace, to see your brand amongst all these other industry leading brands. And I think that that's really, really powerful.
Great point, Abe. And Shrijana, a question for you. How important do you think it is to have those code examples where you can just press a button and see a sample request right in the docs? You don't even have to go to Postman. You don't have to, make a request through curl. You can just write in the docs. You can test out the Zoom APIs. How important do you think that is for the developers?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tommy. I think it's crucial because it provides a way for developers to try out what they're going to get, the kind of data they will be receiving in their response, without even committing to using our APIs in their production level app. So just giving that option for the developers to decide whether or not they want to integrate before they even start thinking of the integration, I think that's very important, because that's one of the way to encourage developers to not only try it out, but also let us know whether you like something or not based on the data that you see.
That's great. Thanks, Shrijana. And then question for Tim and Michael. You were the earliest developer advocates, and you've been here for over 2 years. And so my question is, what was it like in the early days? How did you encourage developers to build on the platform when Zoom wasn't a household name?
I'll defer to you, Michael, for the first response.
It was very slow. It was a startup. It was a startup environment when I first got here. It was very different from what we've seen. Our developer platform, it was based off of a WordPress website, right? So, and it was just very different. And so one of the main things that we tried to do is make sure, from a support perspective, we were always there, because those are one of these that can make or break a customer or developer from a support perspective. So if we didn't have the APIs, we could just easily create a feature request to have it implemented in a feature release, or if we couldn't answer the question, we make sure to have an SLA of 24 hours at least to make sure that the questions are answered. So those are some of the things that we did early on to make sure the support was there, make sure we're following industry standards. Even though we're a startup, just to make sure that that we're there. We knew we had a good product. It was just making sure our developer platform was just on the same level of how Stripe is, because I like the way they do things. So that was part of my mission when I first joined Zoom, to make sure that we're one of the top developer platforms out there.
Yeah, I would add to that too, that initially we kind of took a if you build it, they will come approach, and really what we decided to do was really just build a platform that worked and was simple enough to use, and that provided value. And at the end of the day, that's what I think has kept people coming back, is that we have a platform that works, that provides value. And you know, if we keep building that way, I think we'll be pretty successful. But it was a pretty slow growth at the beginning, and then it just slowly ramped up over time, and hockey sticked eventually, which was really nice.
Yeah, I always say always provide value and basically go out your way so that customers remember that when you go out their way.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Tim and Michael. Another cool thing we did recently to encourage developers to build on our platform was the app marketplace competition, where developers could submit their app ideas and, you know, build a Zoom integration and then pitch it to a panel of investors, kind of like Shark Tank, and then be awarded prizes and actually funding in an investment format. So that was a really fun event too.
And talking about inspiring growth, the winner of that competition, Docket, has since then created several more apps on the marketplace. Now that they're familiar with us, they know our team, and they know that we're there to support them. I just actually, before I hopped on this call, I was actually working with their newest app. So that's really, really fun to see a developer's growth on our platform as well. Because we always talk about our marketplace growing, but a developer that first comes to the marketplace where they don't really know how things work, and then once they get it done and they see the simplicity of our docs and they can work directly with their team, then they can find all these new ways to bring value to their business through the platform, which I think is really awesome. Whether that's building more apps or updating and improving the existing app that they have, we've seen a lot of growth of individual developers as well on our marketplace.
Absolutely.
Great point, Abe. All right. If we don't have any other questions, we can cut it here. Thanks everyone so much for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the 2 days of Denver Startup Week. So we'll see you later, and feel free to reach out if you want to build a Zoom integration or anything.
Yep. Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.